Welcome back to Hot Button Issues. Today, we're diving into a heated debate brewing at Massapequa High School on Long Island. Their mascot, the Chiefs, and associated tribal imagery are under fire from New York's Department of Education. What sparked this showdown?
Thanks for having me. The school's use of Native American references like their tribal-inspired logo has drawn criticism for perpetuating stereotypes. The state is threatening to pull funding if the mascot isn't changed, igniting a classic battle over tradition versus respect.
It's not just a local squabble anymore. President Trump and his education secretary, Linda McMahon, have stepped in. How did this escalate to the federal level?
Well, when state authorities threatened funding, Trump called it an affront to our great Indian population on social media. He tasked Secretary McMahon to investigate, framing it as a civil rights issue on unusual twist that's drawn national attention.
So now we've got the federal government clashing with state education officials. Secretary McMahon claims the state is being discriminatory by targeting the Chiefs' mascot. Is there real legal merit here?
It's a stretch. The state argues it's acting to protect students from harmful stereotypes, which is backed by decades of psychological research. The federal angle flips the script, painting the district as a victim of cultural censorship. It's a tangled web of civil rights claims.
It's like a legal tug of war, but the stakes are high funding, community identity, and civil rights all tangled up. How common is this state versus federal standoff over mascots?
Rare, but not unheard of. Most mascot changes happen at the state or district level. The federal government usually watches from the sidelines, unless it sees a broader pattern of rights violations. This case is unique because it's become a political lightning rod.
Let's cut to the core. Do mascots like the Chiefs really harm Indigenous students, or is this an overreaction to tradition?
The evidence is pretty clear. Studies from the American Psychological Association show Native mascots can damage self-esteem and reinforce the false idea that Indigenous people are relics of the past. For Native kids, it's not just a costume, it's a daily reminder of erasure.
That's powerful. Critics sometimes argue, hey, it's just a name. But for Indigenous families, especially on Long Island, this must hit close to home.
Absolutely. Many Native students report feeling isolated or stereotyped. Imagine your identity reduced to a caricature in your own school. It's a far cry from harmless fun. These symbols shape how communities see and treat Native people.
Let's bring in a human perspective. Jermaine Smith, former Shinnecock Nation legal counsel, weighed in forcefully. What stood out in his response?
Smith called the federal intervention laughable. He's seen firsthand how mascots affect Native youth. His own daughters have questioned why their culture is reduced to a sideline spectacle. He argues these images perpetuate generational trauma and invisibility.
He paints a vivid picture. Children internalizing the message that they're just characters from history books. That's got to have a chilling effect on self-worth.
Exactly. Smith says mascots contribute to poor academic performance and deep-rooted psychological harm. For Shinnecock kids, it's a daily struggle navigating a world that still sees them as mascots, not neighbors.
Supporters of the Chiefs mascot often point to teams like the Dutchmen or Huguenots. If they get mascots, why can't we? They ask. Is this a fair comparison?
Not really. Smith points out that most people rarely encounter actual Dutch or Huguenot descendants, but Native Americans remain a living part of New York. The impact is different when the group in question still faces systemic bias and invisibility.
Plus, there's the issue of power dynamics. One group's history isn't a punchline, while another's gets paraded for entertainment. That's apples and oranges, right?
Exactly. It's about context. For Indigenous people, mascots reinforce harmful narratives. For groups like the Dutch or Huguenots, there's less risk of ongoing discrimination or misrepresentation.
Let's shift gears. This week, the Supreme Court declined to stop a land transfer in Arizona's Oak Flat Sacred to the Western Apache. How does this connect to the mascot debate?
Both cases center on how American society treats Indigenous identity, whether it's as a symbol or a living culture with real needs. Oak Flat isn't just land, it's a spiritual home. Ignoring that undermines both religious freedom and cultural survival.
The parallels are striking. On one coast, kids are mascots. On the other, centuries-old spiritual sites are handed to mining companies. It's like the same story told with different props.
Exactly. Both reflect a broader pattern. Indigenous rights often take a back seat to other interests, whether it's school spirit or economic development.
Wensler Nosey Sr. of Apache Stronghold described Oak Flat as central to Apache identity. What's at stake if this land is mined?
It's existential. Nosey says Oak Flat is where creation stories, ceremonies, and traditions are rooted. Losing it would be like erasing the Vatican for Catholics or Mecca for Muslims. The site's destruction means the end of irreplaceable religious practices.
And these aren't ceremonies that can just be relocated, right? There's a direct tie to the land itself.
Exactly. Some rituals can only occur at Oak Flat. If mining proceeds, those traditions vanish along with a living link to history and spirituality. It's not just symbolic loss, it's cultural extinction.
The Ninth Circuit ruled that transferring Oak Flat didn't violate religious freedom since it wasn't coercive. Isn't that a narrow reading of the law?
It's a classic legal technicality. The court said as long as the government isn't directly forcing or prohibiting religious practice, it's not a violation. But for the Apache, losing access to Oak Flat is functionally the same as being banned from worship.
It's like saying, we're not stopping your religion, just bulldozing your church. That feels like a loophole big enough to drive a mining truck through.
Exactly. It shows how laws can protect abstract rights while failing real people. In practice, the effect is devastating, even if the letter of the law seems neutral.
Let's talk about the elephantor, should I say, the copper mining the room. The Oak Flat land is being transferred to foreign mining interests. What's the economic argument here?
Supporters claim the mine will boost jobs and supply critical minerals. But at what cost? Nosey points out that environmental and cultural destruction can't be offset by short-term profit. The land's value is spiritual and ecological, not just financial.
And it's not just any mining company foreign ownership adds another layer. There's a real debate about sovereignty, resource control, and who gets to benefit.
Absolutely. When profit motives outstrip preservation, indigenous communities lose twice. First, their sacred spaces, and second, any say in the fate of their ancestral lands.
So, whether it's mascots or mountains, we keep coming back to one question. How can America respect indigenous rights without getting stuck in old patterns?
It starts with listening, meaningful consultation, not just checking boxes. Laws need to reflect lived realities, not just technicalities. And schools, courts, and companies must shift from token gestures to genuine partnership.
Maybe that means retiring mascots, protecting sacred sites, and creating policies with not just for Native communities. Hard work, but essential for real progress.
Exactly. It's about moving from symbolic acknowledgement to substantive respect. Only then can we hope to heal old wounds and build a more just future together.